This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're very pleased to be joined today by Darren Monzingo, the president of FARO Industrial and the vice president of engineering of GEM Marine, to discuss propane as an alternative fuel in the maritime sector. You know, obviously, all fuels have their pluses and their minuses.
Yes.
What do you see as the key value proposition for propane in the maritime sector?
The value proposition, I would say, is and this is a very U.S.-centric view. It's not a fuel for everybody. If you're living in a country where you don't have gas as a resource, where if you have to import it, the story is going to change. But here in the U.S., we have so much of it at the moment, partly due to the fact that years of hydraulic fracking, as they say, that has given us access to reserves that previously we did not have. We are exporting, not producing, just the amount of propane that we export from the U.S. If you looked at the gallons, it's a number that's so big it loses its meaning. But if you put it in sort of a tangible terms, I did there's a estimate of what the world's fleets use as in terms of energy. And you could fuel the U.S. merchant fleet 3 times over just with the propane we export. I'm not suggesting every one of us has to go out and do it, but the fact that we can meet these ambitious environmental goals and do it with a fuel that is, on the OPEX side, is cost competitive with LNG, and on the CapEx side is cheaper than LNG because you're not dealing with cryogenic liquids. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you only look at LNG and do not look at LPG.
Yeah. A lot of different vessels, sizes, shapes, where they operate. When you look at the world today in maritime, where do you see propane as particularly well positioned to prosper?
I think that's an excellent question, and I sort of hinted at it a minute ago, but I think in locations where the gas already exists and where the distribution infrastructure already exists, those are the places where it's the low-hanging fruit, because the shipper does not have to invest in building the bunkering vessels and liquefaction plants and whatnot, because it's already there. I would say those are the people who stand the most to gain from it. But I also believe, long term, the problems we're trying to solve are really going to require just about every tool in the toolbox. This is just one of them.
So we're here now with Joe Calhoun of the Propane Council to give us some insights on the specific value proposition of propane. We talk about energy security. Energy security in the world is a very big topic now.
Yes.
How does propane add to our energy security?
So propane adds to our energy security, especially here in the U.S. When you think about the production of propane today, we produce 30 billion gallons of it today here in the U.S. We use about 10 billion of those gallons today in the continental U.S. There's a whole lot more of it that we're exporting. So in terms of security, we have it, it's readily available, we have more than enough of it due to, of course, our growth in natural gases, and along with that comes propane.
Okay. Well, energy security is a benefit enough, and again, I know we just heard from Darren, but what do you see as the chief value propositions to propane as a fuel in the maritime space?
That's a great question. So I really see kind of threefold in the maritime space. And should I include in that the port side solutions that we offer?
Please do.
Okay, so on water, right, we've got vessels which today, if they're hauling propane, are likely using propane to fuel it. Especially in the Pacific Rim, a number of those are fueled with propane. A lot of people don't realize that. So in terms of value proposition though, because of its availability, it's priced competitive. And so there's more on that in terms of price competitiveness. The value proposition in in propane is not just the fuel itself being less expensive, but the equipment is less expensive and it's readily available. Other value propositions for propane in the U.S. If you're concerned about ESG, like everyone is today, then there is that value proposition as well. So it's it's a threefold benefit value of ESG. One is reduced carbon emissions, meaning both SOx and NOx emissions, as well as greenhouse gases. So, and what a lot of people don't realize is propane versus electricity alone is about a 50% difference in greenhouse gas emissions. So our value proposition, even to other, what I'll call indirect fuels, like energy with electricity, because there's always going to be a generation source, right? So, and I would say that's really the third main value proposition of propane. It's a direct energy source. You're not dealing with a secondary fuel or a fuel that has to be processed cryogenically. You're not dealing with an energy that has to be created like electricity.
Obviously, we're here at the Workboat Show. We're talking about alternative fuels on a daily basis across all of our media and maritime, offshore energy, subsea, and even ports and logistics, as you pointed out. What do you see is the key to making propane go further, faster in the maritime sector tomorrow?
I think the key is to recognize, one, that we have solutions today that work today. There's a certain, what I'm hearing more buzz about is the time value of carbon. What does that mean? That means we have solutions today that we can reduce our carbon footprint by X amount without waiting for the perfect solution of the future. We all want those things to happen. We all want reduced carbon emissions through electrification, through hydrogen and other solutions that are truly zero emissions. But for now, we're not there yet. One, in having the infrastructure. Two, in having the cleaner outputs to get there. So, when people talk about zero emissions, there's emissions coming from somewhere to create that electricity. So what do we need to do to really get it moving? I think people need to understand that there's a time value of carbon, and that propane really fills a role today to lower that carbon today.